Knowing exactly what you want. You know, I have gone shopping for certain things. I just bought a sofa recently, and it's a wonderful thing when you walk into a store or an establishment and you know exactly what you're looking for. You know the colors, you know the fabrics, you know if it's a vehicle, you know the price range, the monthly payment you want to make. You know exactly what you're looking for. And you don't have any problem with having to leave and go to another store or having to wait for a time when you know that there is the likelihood that there's going to be sales or discounts because you know what you want and you're not willing to settle. And you've been around enough to know that waiting, especially when you don't have any reason that you have to rush, you know that waiting isn't a problem. That waiting is actually, most times it works in your favor because the seller is much more motivated and much more pressed with a deadline than you are many times as the buyer. You're the one who can kind of sit back and let them squirm and let them make things worth your while, in a sense. So, knowing that and having had the experience to go through these situations many times, it reminds me of the dating pool. It reminds me of some of the conversations that happen online. And sometimes men will approach women and be upset that we feel we have options, we feel that we have standards, expectations, that we won't settle for a coffee date or a water date or whatever it is, going 50-50 on the date or whatever they're complaining about at the time. And what I don't think that they're understanding is that, again, when you know what you want, you have a calmness about the situation. You know that you may not get what you want at that moment. And you're fine with that. You've already accepted that. That is something that you accepted before you walked out of the house. You accepted before you picked up the phone to look at, Google or search. You accepted the good and the bad of the situation. You accepted where you are and what you're dealing with. So you're fine with not getting what you want at that moment because you know that if it's for you, it will be there for you. And if it's not, maybe something better will come along. So I think that that is something that some men have not kind of accepted when it comes to the dating landscape and women's views on marriage and relationships and even children, that a lot of us have looked at the whole situation. We've looked at our mother's relationships, our aunt's relationships, our friends' relationships. We've looked at the research. We've looked at ourselves and we've said, okay, I would be happy to enter a dating situation or to enter a relationship under these conditions. If I don't have these conditions, then I'm fine to be single. I would be happy to have a child under these conditions. If those are not the conditions that are being offered, like let's say, for example, a true 50-50 relationship where my partner is going to do 50% of the housework, 50% of the cooking, 50% of the child care, or more. If it's not going to be what we feel is worth our time, our effort, our investment, then we're fine with walking away. We're fine with being alone, which really isn't being alone because a lot of times we're filling that time with hobbies, with friends, with family, with social support from many other sources. And so it's just a switch. It's like I wanted to buy a car, but I decided to lease instead, you know, or I decided to get some work done on the car that I have and make it last a little longer. Or I decided to ride share. I decided, there's so many different options. The point is feeling that relationships are the best option, are the only option. That is a mindset that a lot of women and some men no longer subscribe to. It never was the truth, but it was pushed as the truth. And now it's just fallen apart in terms of people can see that it's not the truth. They can see that it's not the only option, And so it's just like many other things that have fallen apart. When people have given you propaganda, they've given you scenarios that all it took was a little bit of time, a little bit of space, a little bit of research, a little bit of discernment for you to see, okay, what I was told and what is are two different things. And I don't have to believe what I was told, because what I was told does not fit the life that I want. And I can see the difference between the life that is traditional, the life that these beliefs are lining me up for, where I'm going to have an imbalanced relationship, where I'm going to possibly give a lot more than I receive, where I'm possibly going to get a lot of invisible labor. It's invisible to other people, but it's definitely not invisible to me. When I look at all of the things that come with this relationship, I see that I'm only going to move forward if these things are in my favor, if these things are what I want, if these things are going to be worth it to me. And I think that is a different mindset than what we've had previously. And it's a very beautiful and healthy mindset, because once again, it is based in reality. The fact that relationships, and as I started off talking about purchases, these are choices. We don't have to do these. We can find workarounds. We can find other ways to do things. So when we're making a choice, it only makes sense to look at the pros and cons, to look at the cost and benefit, to really do an analysis as if we're running our life almost like a business and thinking about the things that are going to help us maximize our lives and fulfill our greatest potential and avoid the things that aren't. And that's just some food for thought. So may you walk in